I would like to call the December 7th meeting of the Rutherford County Public Works and Planning Committee together. Would like to take 1 second to remind everybody that this is the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. I say that because today it reminded me of my father, Harold Cush, who served in World War II in the United States Navy, and at 17 years old, talked his father in allowing him to come and sign the papers, because he was only 17, to enlist and fight in World War II in the U.S. Navy. So I thank all the veterans, but it was a good day to remember those who served. I understand there was a gentleman, or more, I'm sure, but a gentleman in Pearl Harbor today ceremonies that was a survivor at 102 years old, I believe they said today. So anyway, thank a vet. Do we have any minutes to approve? All right. Co-Chair Piercy, would you do the honors, please?
Chairman Cush, I have reviewed the minutes and they seem to be in order. I will move for their approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second from Shanto. All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Let's jump right in with the highway report. Randy, have you got anything you would like to discuss with us this evening? Okay, all right. Do we need to? Okay, we need to make a motion to accept that, because that will move on to full commission for the adjustment of mileage. We're talking about for the road book. Rachel passed those out, so there has been a slight change, as there always is. So we have a motion and a second. The second is from Phil Dodd. All those in favor? And that will be sent to full commission for review. Thank you, Randy. All right, building codes report. Tanya, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Chairman, Commissioners. How are y'all doing tonight? Cold.
Good.
All right, so the building permit, the building codes report for November 2021. We had 18 working days in November, and we issued a total of 336 permits. 69 of those were single-family dwellings, for a total revenue of $123,857. We're down a little bit from last month, and also down a little bit from this time last year. We did about just shy of 1,900 inspections and drove 8,200 miles.
Tanya, let me ask you a question, and maybe this is simple math. If we take that evaluation of those 336 single-family homes of 29,761,000 and divide that by the number of units, 336, does that give us an average?
So no, that 336 is total permits, so that includes utility permits, gas, plumbing, all that good stuff. If you divide the valuation of 23,121,471 by the 69 single-family dwelling permits, you might be closer to that number.
Okay. And that 23,121,000 for those 69, where does that number come from?
That's an evaluation that we get from the ICC standard building codes evaluation table. So we take the square footage of each permit that we is submitted to our office, and the different areas in the home, for example, heated and cold living space, garage, porch, unfinished area, are all given a different valuation value. And we take the square footage of each of those areas and multiply it by the value that's assigned to it, and that's how we come up with the valuation for the entire house.
Okay, all right.
And that's where the permit fee comes from.
All right, thank you. Continue on.
And if Anybody has any more questions on building permits? If not, I'll move on to, I'm not sure if Misty uploaded the normal development tax and the school facilities tax report, but as promised last year, or last month, I worked on a different school facilities tax report and kind of broke down the numbers a little bit, and it looks a whole lot like this, if you can find it on your iPad. It should be uploaded.
I think we have it.
Sorry.
Maybe not, no. No, I don't think so.
That's it.
It is on there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You have this one, or do you? You do? Okay. All right, so let's go to this one, because this has got all the numbers on it. And let me break it down for you. I went back to July of '21, just so we could kind of look at the numbers since we started this school facilities tax. The first column, obviously, is the month that we are collecting the data for. The second column is the jurisdiction. So I divided the school facilities tax collection by jurisdiction. The third column is the total school facilities tax collected from each of those jurisdictions, and then the fourth column is the total tax liability. So the total tax liability and the total tax collected may not necessarily be the same, because some of our applicants choose to just pay half of it and then pay the other 50% up front, or excuse me, at the end before the CFO is issued. So that's why, for example, well, let's just go to November. In November, Rutherford County, we collected a total of $90,187 in school facilities tax for Rutherford County, but the square footage tax liability was $91,797. That's because there was probably a couple of applicants that only chose to pay the first 50% up front, and they're going to pay the remaining 50% when before the CFO is issued. So the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns breaks that total tax liability into the different areas where we collect the school facilities tax. For example, the first one is single-family dwellings, townhomes, mobile homes, additions to a single-family dwelling, accessories with living space in them, multifamily, which would be apartments, and then assisted living facilities. So if you'll look in each of those columns, it's broken down by each of the jurisdictions, and then again broken down by the type of unit or application that we received. So the numbers that you see is the square footage that was associated with that column. Is everybody following me, or am I all over the place? Everybody have any questions? No? All right, so the very last column is the development tax. I just put that in there just for reference, so you guys would be able to reference the development tax that was collected in each of these months versus the school facilities tax.
The development tax, the $24,000 for Rutherford County in November.
Yep.
Is that tax collected during the same period?
Yes, that's
So
for the month of November.
Add those two together, that's our total development and
Or
square
Rutherford
foot
County.
tax. Yeah.
Yes, for Rutherford County. The total for the entire month is below that in bold. Do you see where it says month total?
The 7,250?
Right, that's for all the
72,750.
jurisdictions, right.
Okay.
And the same applies with the total school facilities tax. So the total school facilities tax in the month of November was $227,525. Then the total development tax collected was $72,750 for the month of November. Right, and if you need, if you guys take a look at this and you want any other numbers, or you want this report laid out a different way, or if there's something else you want to see on this report, just let me know and I'll try and come up with something else.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So the averages are going to put the average for the school's facility tax would appear as if we're going to do 4.3 million.
Say that one more time.
So if you just take, I may have done the development tax. I may have to come back to this question. Let me ask you this. We had $6 million has been our development tax average. Is a safe round number over the last few years? Total development tax for the year. And this year, just around 6, right?
Yeah.
And this year, we added Craig, and we anticipated a couple of 1.9 million more, didn't we anticipate more income by going to the?
School facilities tax.
Correct.
Okay, so eventually we probably will. I don't know that we're going to see that in year one.
And so I'm just ultimately getting to it. When do you think, and we discussed this before, we know we're going to be a lag and we're going to be behind.
Right.
Does the trend of $4 million today, or the trending towards a $4 million average, does that concern you, or you anticipate it being off that much?
No, I totally anticipate catching up. The average square footage of a home, when I was doing this, I was finishing up this report today, and the total, the average square footage of homes were well into the twos, high twos, low threes.
All right, and we
For a
had
single-family dwelling.
2,600 or 2,400 was our, so if we exceed that.
2671, I think, was our new
Okay.
average.
Okay.
The average on the townhomes that I was working on today was 1,720, which is also up from what we anticipated. We were kind of averaging about 1,500 there. So I'm finding that the numbers are, the square footage is a little higher than what we averaged when I first started working on these numbers a couple of years ago. The numbers are a little higher.
Tanya, when we first were looking at making change, I think you had indicated that there would be a lag this first
Definitely.
year because there were over 1,000 homes
Almost 900, yes, I
that
believe.
were grandfathered.
900 in Rutherford County alone, and that didn't account for the
Sure.
vacant lots that were in the jurisdiction.
This will catch up.
Right. Once we've exhausted those lots, or at least the majority of them, I can't imagine
At least
all of them are going to be
we
exhausted.
believed you that it would.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. It'll probably take us a good full 2 years, full this year
Sure.
and possibly even
We-
next year
I believe that as well.
to get a better idea of what the school facilities tax is going to look like.
Commissioner Dodd, when we I remember when we did this,
Right. We averaged it at 20, it was 2,600. Now we're upwards. I'm seeing a lot of them in the threes, a lot of high twos, 28s, 29. Even townhomes there's some in the city that are 22 and 2,300 square feet.
And and I just did a quick average, if we add them both together, we're gaining each month. Our average looks a little more appealing. And so,
Yeah.
just as each month, I'm going to be kind of getting into that.
It's going to jump around for the first year for sure. There's no way we're not going to be able to look at it and estimate what we're going to make it for sure. Anybody else have any questions? No? Then I will jump on to zoning enforcement. We had a total of 116 inspections for the month of November. And that concludes my report.
Were there any fines generated from any of these 116?
We don't populate fines in our office, so we take them, that's done through court.
Okay. Any questions regarding those series of reports?
Motion to approve the report.
Motion to approve all those reports. We need a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tanya.
Have a good night.
Anything else?
Oh, nope, that does
Thank
it.
you very much. Happy holidays to you. All right, we now have planning and engineering. So Doug and Mike, you are on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well today. Just a couple things to bring to your attention today. First is our normal report that we bring you every month for the available lot inventory through the end of November. Right now, we're looking at a total available lots of 663. That is kind of trending down over the last several months. Big reason is we just haven't seen a whole lot of the major plats with multiple lots being recorded. I anticipate this number changing probably this month, going in the other direction, because I've already signed a handful of plats this month that are going to be recorded. So just to bring that to your attention. Also, kind of dovetailing on what Tanya was talking about regarding the development tax and the schools facilities tax, I included another report in there, which I started last month, kind of breaking down the lots that are currently under the development tax versus those that are under the schools facilities tax. And I double-checked the numbers. They add up to the remaining number in the first report, so I know it worked, so that's always a good thing. But you'll see that the number under the development tax is 574. It's actually down about 30 or so from last month. I haven't done a graph yet just because we haven't been doing it long enough to really bring up a graph that's really going to mean anything. But this number and this chart will continue to get smaller and smaller. The last page of the report, however, plats recorded after June 30th, 2021. Right now, you see there's a total of 89. Those are those lots that are under the schools facilities tax. That number is going to fluctuate. It'll go up, down, depending on what the market's doing and how many plats are recorded and whatnot. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If anybody has any questions on that, I'll be more than happy to discuss them.
Thank you, Doug.
All right. If not, we'll go ahead and jump into the rezoning report. We will have one rezoning request for you at next week's meeting. This is for property located at the corner of Lebanon Pike and Central Valley Road. The applicant, it's Huddleston Steel Engineering for Randy Friedsam. They are looking to do a planned development on the property for a mixed-use type venture. Just give you some background on that, and the pattern book is included with your on the SharePoint for you to look at as well. They're proposing to construct a mixed-use development, as I stated. They're looking at 3 different residential products. They're looking at 2-bedroom townhomes, some 3-bedroom townhomes, and then also a handful, 26 detached single-family homes. I won't go into a whole lot of detail as far as the pattern book. If you've got questions after looking at that or the staff report, feel free to let me know. Some of the high points of this, probably the primary one being the traffic study that was performed as part of this request. Turn lane improvements have been recommended at that intersection. Of course, there's already a left turn lane and a right decel lane from Lebanon Pike onto Central Valley Road, but probably one of the largest issues that we were dealing with here is that there is also a recommendation for a signal at that intersection. So the approval of this particular application should be approval also, and this bring along with the signal at that intersection. So I wanted to bring that to your attention as well. Most of the discussion at the Planning Commission had to deal with, well, first of all, there were some questions about parking in the streets. The applicant did say they were willing to add verbiage into the pattern book and the HOA documents that would prohibit any parking on the street. There was also some questions about phasing, which the applicant was going to look a little bit more into. Staff also had some concerns regarding some of the turn lanes or what we felt were appropriate to add to this application. Proposed turn lanes from Central Valley Road into the development. These are not shown in the applicant's pattern book right now. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this without that in there. However, they also realized that they're going to get another crack at this should this be approved. When we see plats and site plans, they were comfortable leaving it to that particular portion, that phase of the approval should it get that far. And the applicant has indicated that they are willing to add those improvements again from Central Valley Road into the actual development. But following that discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval, again, by a unanimous vote. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Doug, the turn lanes and the light at Central Valley and Lebanon, that'll be paid for by the developer?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Chairman Harris, I believe you had somebody reach out to you with a complaint about that the county was going to pay for that?
I think that was a different development.
Different
Oh,
development,
okay.
but Yes, he answered that question
Okay.
where the county has no
That's
cost
correct.
whatsoever on it.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Doug.
And that's all I have if there's no other questions.
Yes, sir. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mr. DeMasi, I've just today have received 2 phone calls concerning flooding out in a, I think it's a subdivision called 1129 Compton Development. Mr. Piercy, Commissioner, is that in your district? These folks, I think it's in the city, but they're concerned about the flooding that will occur in the county to these homes that are calling in. Mr. Chairman, I'll show you the pictures of the flood that continues to occur. There's 177 homes being proposed for that development.
Talking about that one
How
on
far
Compton
outside
Road,
the city is it?
It's not far outside the city at all. The property itself, if it's the same development, yeah. It's actually, that property was annexed into the city. It's on the north side of Compton Road. It was annexed into the city back in 2006. So it's actually been in the city for quite some
All
time.
the neighbors out there, Commissioner Piercy, are requesting some type of civil engineering job to see how it's going to impact our county residents, you know.
Well, and I don't want to steal Mike's thunder, but I know we speak pretty frequently with city officials when we get these concerns. So I know whatever concerns that we hear, we'll bring up to the city as far as that development moving forward. So.
I've had several calls, multiple visits on this. I watched the planning committee, Murfreesboro's planning committee, the other night in their meeting. They had several residents come and speak opposed to it. One of their main concerns was the water, but their worst concern to me was they were taking the stub outs that's in Lake Brook. Lake Brook runs one side all the way down to I think goes to the river. And they're taking 2 to 3 stub outs and connecting this new development to Lake Brook. Lake Brook does not have sidewalks. They don't have city street lights. They're not set up for this development to be poured into their subdivision. They have large lots, 5, 6, 7 acre lots, and we're talking about 6,000 square foot lots in this 177 house development. As a county and a governing body, do we not have any control over what the city's decisions can impact our county residents? Because this is just a piece of city property. It's a spot zone is what I would call it. They zoned it 2006 thinking sewer was coming. It didn't make it. And now they're back wanting to do a leach field setup now.
A step system.
Step
Yes, sir.
system. And the neighbors out there are very concerned. They have real nice homes in Lake Brook. There's real nice homes down Sanford Drive. There's one person that's got 13 acres. His house fronts on Compton Road and runs all the way down behind all the houses on Sanford Drive. Well, it's 250 feet wide. Well, they're wanting to put a stub out into his 250 feet. Well, that's got everybody on Sanford Drive upset. Mm-hmm. You know, their homes show masonry construction. It's nothing but hardy board. And everybody around them has got brick homes. They're nice. They're upscale. You know, I don't want down the gentleman's development. Don't even know who the developer is. Don't care. But what they're projecting to build, you go back in 10 years and look at it, it won't look like much compared to what's out there now. Now, I think we need to stand for the people in Lake Brook somehow. And I intend to go to the city council meeting because it goes to their council next for approval. But, you know, we need something to stand behind, a scotch, you know, for something, because we need to help these people.
Right. Well, go ahead.
I mean, when it comes to tying into stub streets, I mean, they're county roads, but they're public rights of way. So I don't think from a county standpoint there's going to be a whole lot we can do to say you can't tie onto these stub streets. If they were private roads, that's another matter, but not when it comes to actual public streets. You know, obviously they'll have to coordinate with the highway department as far as making the connections and everything, as long as that's done per county regulations and whatever the city requires. But I don't think there's anything we can do to tell them they can't tie on to these. You know, when we look at developments, we require stub outs onto adjacent properties a lot of the time if they don't cul-de-sac, because we like the interconnectivity from a safety standpoint, delivery services standpoint, things like that. So the fact that they're tying into these doesn't really surprise me, quite frankly.
Go ahead. I too watched, Mr. Pierce, I did watch the City Planning Commission meeting as well. But something that did not come up in the meeting, which may help the neighbors, that property was annexed into the city contingent on gaining off-site sewer easements to connect to the city sewer. That was the original agreement, and that's above me in legalese and terms and all that, but that would be the only thing that if I was a neighbor, I would come back and say, hey, this was annexed into the city contingent on, accessing all this, and now it's been changed to a step system where off-site easements are not required. But we do work hand in hand with the city on developments. They do share information with us when it becomes to the construction plan phase, and they do work with us. I don't know if you watched the whole meeting, but another topic that brought up was another city development that had frontage on county roads. And we told them that it would be best to have just one jurisdiction overseeing this, because we did not have a carrot and the stick to really say what was going on the city side. So we asked them to request annexation of the small segments of road that the city lots would tie into. So it would be all under their jurisdiction, all under their supervision for road improvements and all that. So we do work with them, but once it gets to the city, there's not a whole lot we can do, but we do coordinate with them and work with them.
By allowing them to tie into the stub outs, that relieved them of having to put in a turning lane. And it's a very bad location. You're coming over a rise, onto a flat, down a hill to not have a turning lane. They've got a road right there adjacent to it, Emory. There's a wreck there about every 3 days.
Right. Yes, sir.
They didn't ask to put up a light, no turning lane. They're just grabbing that piece of property and going to capitalize with very little investment in it. It's what they're doing.
They are putting a turn lane on Compton for their new street connection, on a left turn lane coming into their development.
They said it didn't
Emory.
warrant. They said it didn't warrant a turning lane.
From what I gathered, that they were putting a left turn lane in there, but not at Emory, at the Emory intersection. The local residents, when they had a neighborhood meeting, they asked that they add turn lanes there, but that's what they were saying did not warrant turn lanes. But, sorry, just to kind of fill in some information. But yes, sir, I did watch that meeting as well, because it does impact so
Mr.
many
Hughes,
county residents.
where does this water go to?
It flows to the west, northwest. Some of that area is in the FEMA floodplain. And so there's two sets of rules. We in the county require compensation. If there's fill inside the FEMA flood zone, the floodplain, we require a compensating cut of an equal amount so we don't lose that storage. The city does not do that. They do an engineering study to look at a 1 foot rise or less. If there's less than 1 foot of water rising in the 100-year floodplain, they're okay. But I wish they would do like us, but they have a different set of rules. So we work with them, and
I don't want to buy another FEMA house.
no, sir, I don't either. And I've made that perfectly clear. I do not want to buy another FEMA house, and that's why we work diligently to not have that situation again.
These pictures they sent me today, and it looks like the water's up to the third slat on that white fence.
Yes, sir.
It's like a river.
It is, and that's what I told them. I did talk to the design engineer. He called me about the project, and I said, there's a significant sized box culvert under Compton Road where, there's a large drainage basin that comes through there, funnels through that, goes down Emory, cuts through this development, and then goes out to the west. So I told him that's going to be a significant challenge to get that to work, and he understood that and said that they were going to meet the FEMA requirements and the city's requirements on that. So
what is our next step to address the issues?
Well, they will have to approach us in the engineering and the highway department to discuss the road connections onto the county roads. On Compton, that is a TDOT road, so we won't have a dog in that hunt. If that were still in the county's jurisdiction, we would, but they annexed that strip of Compton to the property. So we won't see that, but we will see connections to Emory and Bushnell and the other road connections. So we will have to coordinate that. But as far as I know, I don't think we have much authority to say, no, you can't do that and you can't connect to the street.
I mean, any evidence we get, like pictures, like if we get those, and we will forward those to the city and say, look, these are the concerns that we have. These are what some of the neighbors out in the area. They may have sent those to the city as well, for all we know, but we'd be happy to send anything over there to say, these are the concerns that we have, and we will want to work with them to try to address those. But Mike's right. At some point, once it's in the city, you know, they go by the city's regulations, not ours. We just try to ensure that there's not any impact to county residents around that.
What about the issue he mentioned about it being annexed into the city based on they got sewage?
That was interesting, and if I was a neighbor there, I would bring that up at the city council meeting, because that's how it was approved originally back in 2006, saying we're going to annex this property contingent on you obtaining this offsite easement to serve the property with city sewer. So when they changed the sewage treatment facility to a step system, they eliminated that offsite easement requirement. But you know, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but I would harp on that. And the earlier agreement, the city planning commission agreed for those 3 stub street connections. Well, city council removed 2 of those when it went to the city council level. So there was only 1 street connection that was approved in the 2006 agreement. So they kind of pulled back from what their planning commission approved. So yes, sir.
So as a county, could we not, I don't guess but could we not request that they improve those stub-out streets with sidewalks and lights if they want to hook their new development to it?
Now, they will have to transition. I don't know. We're not set up to pay for street lights, and we could, if Randy was still here, he could, they
I'm
will
talking about the
maintain
city.
sidewalks.
The city or the developer has to do it, not the county.
And I'm going to kind of echo what Mike said as far as not being an attorney, so I don't want to, speak out of turn, but I don't know if we would be able to request the city to make that a condition contingent upon the zoning of the property, that they put sidewalks down a county road and street lighting down a county road. I just don't know if that's something that we can legally do, or they could legally do. I mean, we could always ask, but I don't know if they can legally require something like that.
1 or 2 of the planning commissioners said it was a county road, so they needed to call their county commissioner and complain about it. Said Compton Road was a county road, and that lets me know some of them haven't seen it.
The Compton, West Compton on that side of Lascassas Pike is a state route, and so we have no control over that.
Mr. Chairman, I just forwarded you 2 of these pictures I received from this lady, Mrs. Bauer. And so if you have the pictures of the flooding, could you forward that on from our planning department to the city's planning department and let them know that we're very much concerned about the flooding issue, as well as commissioners, and I would assume, Mr. Chairman, this whole committee's concerned yeah, it's easy to, when you're right up against it, and blame everything on the county, all right?
But yeah, we'll be happy to forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Robert, go ahead.
Well, I've been biting my tongue, but this is kind of a pet peeve for me for many years. And I've got a suggestion. I was going to bring it up. I've actually called Director DeMasi and here, Mr. Hughes, about this. And I've mentioned this before, but just kind of give an example again. Davidson County used to have a lot of flooding, especially around Mill Creek. Well, they went through their drainage basins, and they did drainage studies for their entire county. that's fairly expensive. I think right now, the only thing we require is if it's a certain number of acres, then we require a drainage study. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Well, I mean, pretty much every development we look at.
Every development has to have an engineered study.
Well,
So there's different levels of storm events. So we designed to the 25-year storm event for our stormwater network. If it crosses the FEMA flood zone, they have to design to the 100-year.
well, the problem I got with this is we're not consistent across the county. And what I would suggest we do is do a drainage basin study for this entire county. Each one of there's different drainage basins throughout the county. And the reason I'm bringing this up now, I don't know if y'all have been looking at some of the grant monies that have been handed down or offered. And this last one that the mayor had sent out, I think might apply here, that we could probably use some of the grant money to do some development or rather these drainage studies for the county. And I'd love to see us do it for the whole county. And the reason I'm saying this is basically these maps will tell you if you get a drop of rain in Fosterville, it's going to tell you how it's going to affect Walter Hills down there at the dam. And basically what I see these drainage studies not doing is they're not going all the way back. You know, if I get rain here, say in where I live off the Halls Hill Pike, you know, that goes straight, it goes to Davidson County eventually because of the way the drainage basin goes through the Stones River. But these studies do not show that. They'll show, yeah, it raises it a foot. What was it the city was saying? It might raise it a foot here in this area, but what's it going to do 10 miles down the road? What it's going to do 10 miles down the road may be the big deal, not where these 150 houses are being set. But I would suggest that we ask the mayor if there are to look to see if we've got some grant money available to do these drainage studies. And I'll go back and point out, just as y'all mentioned a minute ago, is I don't want to pay for another FEMA house. And this is a tool that they can use to prevent us from having problems like this in the future. Mr. Hughes, you might want to expound on it a little bit. You know, you and I had a little bit of contact on this, but.
Well, are you talking about the buyouts or the?
Well, I'm not talking about the buyouts. I'm talking about, you know, doing drainage studies,
Oh, yes, sir.
basins for the county
Right.
through our grants.
Right, and we're looking into opportunities to obtain these grants to do more studies, but, you know, we've applied for some grants that, you know, 2 years ago we're still waiting on. But anyway, we are investigating the newer grants to see what opportunities we have. But we are very diligent in making sure any new development, whatever size, doesn't impact downstream, upstream, or on-site. I mean, we are very diligent with that. We go through the calculations very, very diligently and make sure everything is done according to our rules and regulations. So, but I mean, we're always open to other opportunities to get grants and, you know, anything.
Well, I'm speaking as a former planning commissioner, and I'm telling you, you know, even our rules back then, I know we beefed them up because I've helped push some of them. A lot of times, the amount of water that you see that's allowable on a lot will actually not get on the wood part of the structure, but it'll get in the ductwork.
Oh, yeah.
It gets in the
We
ductwork.
eliminated that before I got here, and which I really appreciate.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's just one of the things. But, you know, we've got rules like that we've got to change. And, you know, if there's any more out there along those lines, I mean, that's got to stop. You know, just saying, hey, I'm going to build this to a 500 flood event. Well, that's fine if you could wait 500 years, but normally you're going to see 3 or 4, sometimes more 500-year flood events in 1 year. So it's not like, you know, yeah, that might be the max you see in a 500-year period, but that don't mean there's only going to be one between that 500-year period. So that's why this is a pet peeve to me, and I'd like to see us do something about it. And I think doing these drainage studies would be a step in the right direction.
We have applied for one with that the brick grant on Fosterville and Nashville Highway, Broad Street. So that's just one of them, but yes, sir.
Well,
I
exactly.
agree.
I mean, we need to do the whole county. We don't need to just stop at one. And like I said, I think that there's monies available out there in some of these grants right now that we need to really look at hard. You know, they specifically say water. Now, I think what they meant was getting utility water to different areas, but they also mentioned sewer.
And
You know,
stormwater.
and
stormwater.
this. Exactly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I can, Commissioner P, testify to Mike's diligence. We're seeing minimum pad elevations on critical lots now, which we didn't used to see as consistently. And those minimum pad elevations are bringing the AC pads up. So nothing is sitting below floodplain. And then the floor is a finished floor elevation is in excess of that. And so there has been some diligent studies done by the engineer. But I do want to say, Mike, is that a matter of policy or is that a matter of your diligence? And if it's not a matter of policy, we need to change our policy. You understand? If you're diligent, more diligent than policy, that's convincing me that you're going to take care of some of these problems Commissioner P is mentioning. But it can't be such that when you leave, the next guy's not compelled to do the same.
Right.
Just help me on policy.
It is clearly in our subdivision regulations what is required. And they did write in some catch-all phrases that do this or to the county engineer's recommendation. So they do give me some open ability to go above and beyond what is normally asked. So, but yes, most, if not all, of our requirements are in our subdivision regulations. But I do draw on 20-plus years of design experience, working here and other communities and seeing what's required.
And I just say that we have improved in our county, looking out for the flood areas.
Yes. Right.
But I just want to restate, if it's only because of your personal diligence, that's not good enough. I would hope that it needs to go beyond you until we get these studies done. I just want to alert Commissioner P that I've been very pleased with the current diligence that we did not have in the past.
Right.
Well, I've got a lot of constituents that I can give you their phone number if you want to discuss it with them. They've had their air systems flooded 3 times in the last 2 years, that kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
That's not the kind of due diligence that they have observed.
Well, unless it's a new house, historically in the past, all that was required was to raise the finished floor of the house. And the yard could be sitting in a bowl. And your ductwork and your HVAC unit could be subject to flooding at all times. So, but Commissioner Dodd is correct. We've elevated a minimum pad requirement to get the whole house that the house is built on above the spillover elevations of any localized issues or FEMA issues
Well, I heard you say pad, but is that including any ductwork?
Yes, the pad would raise the whole house up above flood issues.
When you say pad, are you talking about the foundation, or are you talking about a concrete floor pad?
No, I'm talking about the ground. The ground has to be elevated above a safe level, at least 1 foot above any local or FEMA flood issues.
Is that a 500-year flood, or is that a 100-year flood?
That's a 100-year flood. We designed to the 100-year flood. Right. I mean, you could design to the Waverly flood, but you've got to strike a balance.
I understand.
And I've told many people that I've talked with, just as a matter of conversation, I'll say, if it rains enough, we all live in a floodplain. It doesn't matter where you are. But yeah, the 100 years is what we plan for.
Yeah. Yes.
I want to go back to this.
Yes, sir.
To my understanding, it's an RS6 zone.
PUD, yeah, it was a planned development is what the...
It's not an RS6.
Now, the lots maybe around that 6,000, 7,000, some of them at least. I think they, around the perimeter, they had larger.
Up to 12,000
Yeah.
at least.
So,
How many of those do we have in the county?
6,000 square foot lots?
There's about,
South Haven is
South
a lot of
Haven's
them, yeah. After, quite frankly, after South Haven, and there's the one out there off Epps Mill Road, you know what I'm talking about, Steve Knox's deal out there.
oh, yes, Buchanan Estates,
Yeah, Valley Farm, thank you. We've seen kind of the pendulum, at least from our comfort with the real small lots, kind of going in the other direction, where we're wanting to see, we don't want to see lots quite that small. So, I mean, do we have ones that are out there that are about 55, 6,000 square feet? We do. Again, South Haven's a big one, Valley Farm being another one. But when we talk with applicants and developers coming in now, well, the one that we looked at today, as a matter of fact, I think they started out smaller than what they were proposing, and we told them they needed to up that. So there are out there, but the pendulum, like I said, is kind of swinging in the other direction where we're trying to get them not so small.
So we're getting away from that.
Right, not below, not completely below 15,000 square feet necessarily, but at least not as low as the 5,500, 6,000. We think they need to be a little bigger than that. That starts bringing up setback issues, lot coverage issues, other things that we've talked about, among staff at least, so, yeah.
Chairman, yes. My understanding is if you're a member of the National Flood Insurance Program, everything is a flood zone. You may be an X or non-hazardous if you're sitting on top of a hill, but everything is a so-called flood zone. So, and there's different degrees of hazard. I think AE, and then I guess those are numbers.
Right,
So
yeah.
what do we allow to be built in AE or above? What is our regulations
Right.
with hazardous zones?
Yeah, as far as the uses are concerned, I mean, that doesn't really affect the uses necessarily, as far as whether or not it's in a floodplain or not. Where it really becomes an issue, kind of like Mike was talking about, it has to do with the elevations. And Mike, feel free to jump in if I say something wrong, but single family residential, basically, any residential units, what you're looking at is the pad, you know, the ground of where it sits, it has to be at least a foot above the base flood elevation as determined by what FEMA suggests on their, or states on their maps. And right, X just means it's outside the 100-year floodplain, basically, is what that means.
The term we've always used.
Mhm.
So, but as far
That has to be at least, the pad has to be at least a foot above the base flood elevation, and then the finished floor has to be 2 additional feet above that. So the finished floor.
3 feet of freeboard
Right.
above the 100-year storm
Yeah,
event.
and that's actually above and beyond what even FEMA requires. FEMA just requires 1 foot. So we have the 1 foot for the pad, but then the 2 additional feet for the finished floor. So that's actually beyond what FEMA would require.
So what is the hazard?
Floodway
The
is probably what you're
floodway.
talking about.
And the floodway,
Yeah.
not the floodplain. The floodway is the area of the creek or the stream that has the highest velocity. So if you're a giant, and just imagine, I'm sorry, I'm going off on flood stuff, but if a giant could squeeze that flood zone in and that water were to rise 1 foot, that is considered the floodway. But that's typically the area of highest velocity of streams and rivers where nothing can be built. They don't even want you to excavate out material because it could impact downstream or upstream. We do allow in the flood plains the AE zone, but like I mentioned earlier, we require a compensating cut. So if you fill in one area of the flood plain, you have to cut somewhere else, area outside of that, so we don't lose that volume, that flood storage volume.
All right.
Sorry I brought it up. No.
Good questions. Moving on.
Good questions.
Continue on.
I'm done, unless there's other questions about the zoning report.
All right. So that finishes your reports. I know you have a computation worksheet to chat about, right?
For me, yes, sir.
So let's make a motion to approve reports.
Motion to approve report.
And a second from Co-Chair Piercy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Doug?
I'll take this one. On another folder in there, it's called RC Engineering. There is an adjusted, updated form that was recently approved by the County Commission to establish engineering plan review fees and land disturbance fees. So processing these with new fees and applications, we found out we had a couple errors, and we'd like to make some refinements to that. But it involves money as well, so this will have to go to Budget and Finance. But first and foremost was in the land disturbance fee section. We had originally just listed $150 for a individual lot grading plan. And that's partially correct, but the permit fee was $150, and then it's $100 per acre of disturbance. So that should have said $250, and that's typically our base fee. Anything up to 1 acre needs to be $250. And we have had some zoning compliance applications come in where they're going to build a large house, a large barn, a swimming pool, a large driveway that will be over that 1 acre in area. So we've got an additional text in there that says individual lots or tracts of land over 1 acre of disturbance will be charged $250 plus $100 of each additional acre above the 1 acre. So you can, we have seen some that were above that 1 acre amount, so we just need to make sure that we're covering that in this plan review worksheet. And then the second thing that we needed to address was minor plats that don't include infrastructure improvements. So if you've got a big farm and you track it off and you're not creating any new roads, you're just creating tracts of land, we didn't feel it was proper to charge what we would for a typical major subdivision of, you know, if we had one, just for an example, one development that had 22 acres of land, but they carved it off into 6 parcels. And we didn't feel it was right that we should charge them 22 acres of disturbance because they're only going to be disturbing typically 1 acre per lot for their house, driveway, and whatnot. So we added a new section called minor plats with no infrastructure improvements in the land disturbance fee section that is based on the number of lots. And this is just for subdivisions where you're not creating new roads, you're not doing a detention pond, you're not doing anything outside of just building a house and a driveway. So we thought that would help clear that up. And then the last thing was adjusting the calculations for the major plats with infrastructure improvements or site plans. We wanted to clarify that a little bit better, that it's all projects, major plats or site plans. We had some calculations that subtracted off the first 5 acres or something like that. So, but it seemed a little confusing, and actually we went through some calculations that if you bump up to the next level and you subtract off the first 5 acres, you're actually losing money. So the county was actually losing money, so we eliminated that subtraction of previous acreage to kind of clarify things and simplify things. So we feel that this would help moving forward, and it's mainly just fixing, I sense, a typo and clarifying what we're wanting to do and simplifying the calculations. So it's, some of these people were so confused on how to calculate this, but we provided a spreadsheet where you'll only fill in the blue areas of this development and it'll calculate it for you. So hopefully they can take this information and just plug in what they need. We'll check it and make sure it meets our what our requirements are, and then we'll say, okay, now we agree with you, and now you need to write us a check for X number of dollars.
Can you do that online?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Did you need a motion from this group, or do you go straight to budget?
Just the worksheet, yes, sir.
Since there's adjustments, and the adjustments have money attached to them.
So I'll be going to Budget and Finance on Thursday.
Do we need to approve it from here?
Yeah.
And thank you, I'm glad you cleared up the 5-acre subtractions at the bottom. The last one we did was very confusing.
Right.
This helps, and I know we were in approval because it captured additional revenue that we thought was appropriate. So having seen some of these after we made that approval and seeing these adjustments, I would make a motion to approve this and forward it to Mr. P's Budget Committee.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? I do have one, Michael.
Yes, sir.
Will there be a supporting page to this that may have some definitions as to what a infrastructure improvement versus a non-infrastructure improvement lot may be?
We could add that
Because I think that needs to be
to
clear.
this form.
I think,
Say infrastructure, roads,
Yeah.
stormwater management. We can refine
yeah,
that a little bit more.
you explained it well, what it means.
It is in the subdivision regs too, so,
Okay.
That is a
Because
reference point.
somebody filling this out for the first time may not know exactly what is or is not an infrastructure improvement. So that would be my suggestion.
Yes,
All
yes,
right,
sir.
Yes, Robert?
On the land disturbance fee,
Yes,
just so
sir.
I've got this straight in my head, anything over an acre would cause you to charge more.
Yes, sir.
So if we had 2.5 acres over, what would they be charged?
Well, it's 2.5 acres over, it would be $250 on top of the $250.
So what I'm getting at is that half acre,
Yes.
you're charging half
Yes.
of the
Yeah.
1 acre fee.
Yes, sir. Before, we just rounded down, and now we're taking a portion thereof to the nearest tenth of an acre.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call, I'm sorry, you're exactly right. Thank you, Robert. You have a question? Okay.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. Last but not least, I welcome our newest member, Mr. Bishop Wagner. And Mayor, if you'd like to give a proper introduction to Bishop, and this will be his first report.
As we did last night, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we told him how to properly look at the camera instead of back at the chairman, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Last night at steering. So, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman, thank you. We went through a laborious process of trying to find our replacement for our new solid waste director. And chairman was on that selection committee, myself, Sonia Stevenson with HR. We had myself and Mr. Sandlin, I believe, and went through the process. And before you is our new director. His name is Bishop Wagner. Bishop had a lot of attributes going for him. He's a Blue Raider. He went to MTSU. He went back and got his master's degree in, go ahead and tell me.
Environmental geosystems.
Okay, environmental geosystems, which is, I think, in the right field. He has worked at TDEC. He has probably visited every landfill across the state, and he knows solid waste and how to handle waste streams very well because that's who we had to report to. So I think optically it looks good for Rutherford County. We hired the guy from inside the department, and so he knows the laws. He has the connections, and is prepared. He's excited about leading us in addressing our waste stream and our solid waste issues, and he hit the ground running just last week and been out there on several issues that we have at the landfill. He's been riding with some of the drivers. He's met with them. He's getting to know them and ordered them all new steel-toed boots that should have been done 2 or 3 years ago from a safety standpoint. He's picking right up, and we're glad to have him, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. All right, Bishop, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Mr. Chairman, distinguished commissioners. So I'm going to start off with an apology. On the information that I've given you, I noticed that there is an error in the math, and I want to draw it to your attention. On the first page, that's looks like this has a memo written on the top of it when it's giving a breakdown to our Class 4 materials. If you'll notice the total all brush, it has listed 54,260 pounds, and then it has that equaling 343.45 tons. That is incorrect. It should be 27.13 tons. I'm going to have to follow up on this and see what's happening in that system and if the revenues that are reported there are also correct. I've made a note here to bring that back up when I return so that we can make sure that we're right on the record and that everything is working appropriately there. In the month of November, we handled 3,189 tires, and we netted $3,066 at a loss of $123 for managing these tires. And those two are the large sections of the landfill portion of the report. Are there any questions on that? Okay. I will move on to our materials tonnages. As you know, we collect materials at both the convenience centers, and then we have front-end loader crews that go around, majority to the schools and county entities that we collect from. The convenience center total tons for November were 2,941.48 tons, and our front loader totals were 611.06 tons. We recycled 488.07 tons. Are there any questions about those numbers? Okay. I have been in contact, the last commission meeting, the RFP project with Caldwell Environmental Solutions was brought up. I've been in contact with Becky Caldwell, and she is planning to proceed and report to me as soon as possible with beginning. We're going to set a time frame, and she's assured me that she is anxious to do this and will stay under budget. We have I've been out to the landfill. We have been dealing with, as you know, some leachate pump and treat issues out there. In the process of, on Thursday, I will be meeting with Triad. I've been out there multiple times. I've met with TDEC from the field office, and we've discussed these activities that are going on out there. Previously, Vice Mayor Sandlin had crews go out there and put some straw and seed on there. That was an issue that was there that I'm happy to report that there is actually grass starting to grow on that slope, so maybe we'll get some stabilization there. We are pumping out of 2 sump locations currently, and I am looking into ways for us to be able to remediate and abate that. I should have more information in the months following. And I think another thing of interest is we've had an unusual amount of trucks break down due to clutch and transmission issues this month. In fact, I've got 4 in the shop right now, and I was on the phone with Mac in Nashville today, basically saying, give me back my truck so we can have everything up and running. With the supply chain issues that are happening, it's a real concern in the in this industry, that parts aren't being delivered in time, and as part of normal action, going up on top of the landfill and all of the driving that we do, these things normally happen, and in years past have been fixed rather rapidly. I'll keep you all abreast of these activities as I know more about how we're getting back. I'm also checking in to see, I believe we have a second vendor possibility to where we can maybe start sending our trucks multiple places to see who's going to get them back quicker, if that's going to help. But right now I'm willing to try anything to keep our wheels on the road and our activities going. Are there any questions?
Bishop, would you go back a second in regards to your Becky Caldwell comment? In your contact with her, was that regarding an RFP contract for her writing the reclamation RFP? Okay, so that are we prepared, or we need to write a contract, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that ball's rolling?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, okay. Yeah.
It's a contract not to exceed $20,000.
Right, okay, all right. Thank you. All right, what is next on your list, Bishop?
That concludes my list. I have something that was brought to my attention last night. Would you like me to address our question that we had last night?
All right, well, let's approve your reports first, and then we'll go into some open discussion.
I'll make the motion to approve his report, and I also welcome you to our world.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, thank you. Do we have a second? Santos, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, Bishop, what's on your mind?
Thank you. Commissioner Harris asked me to look into the status of a contract that we have with a current grading contractor that we have out there, Mr. Melton. And I'm unable to locate a copy of an actual contract. I have the letter where his bid was accepted on April 23rd, 2021. It does have language in there for a 30-day severance clause that may be of interest. I am prepared to continue to dig deeper to try to find out more information about that in the contract to see where we are with, are we tied to a contract with a date? Is there something that we could do to start just looking around at options to see if we are in fact getting the best deal? My concern is there was one bidder in on this project. If there is a better way to do this, especially with post-closure activities that will be coming up, I'm interested in if we have the possibility to do that, finding a solution that's going to be able to do that in that long term. I will say I've looked at the activities and the cost list that he has. There are a couple things that I do like that are in there. One of them is we are not being charged for equipment that is sitting idle on site, which is a pretty big ask in most cases. But there are probably other things in there that maybe if we were able to bring it to reopen a bid process, for example, and try to get a contract out there that we might get some competition in that.
Thank you, Chairman. Have you asked Mr. Belton for a copy of his contract?
I spoke with Mr. Melton, but he did not provide me a copy. I didn't directly ask him for it. I felt we would have it in our files, and I just found out about this last night. So I will continue to dig, and hopefully I'll have something by next month, either one way or another, if we have a copy of that contract.
Well, one of the things that we have discussed with the previous superintendent, and Commissioner P had brought this up, and it's still not been done. So, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Second of all, get to business now. We're supposed to know exactly what he did to the point, to the hour. And these timesheets are supposed to be turned in. Commissioner P had made a motion of and was approved by this committee. So that's something that I'd like to see.
Yes, sir.
Well, I had two questions, and y'all pretty well beat the first one over the head, and I appreciate that. Saved me the trouble. The second thing I wanted to bring up is I know a lot of our convenience center operators, and those guys don't make a lot of money, but they take a whole lot of flack from the public. And in some cases, you know, it's verging on this shouldn't be happening. And something that came to mind is, and it just, I'm throwing it out here now for us to discuss and you to think about, is how about us putting cameras up at our convenience centers that are on a tape? We have a question of something happens at one of our centers, we've got tape that we can pull. Anyway, I just kind of want to throw that out there. I know we're doing some renovations on several of our convenience centers, and I think that having video service of these locations would probably help us in the long run.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a very good idea. In fact, I was talking with Cody York just last week about what that would look like for us, especially since we're moving forward with the construction of the 4 new convenience centers in the near future. That having a networked, it not only would help for the safety, a networked camera system not only would help for the safety of the attendants and liability issues, but it also may be a way that we could evaluate load counts remotely to move more into an analytical style of dispatch and route control.
Yeah.
So I'm taking right now I've been taking a look at technology that's available. I'm learning how to purchase in the public sector, so and what goes on there. So I appreciate your patience with me as I get up to speed with how we can do that. But it is my goal to have safe, clean, effective, and you're absolutely right. I want to say, as everything for the record, that these attendants they're the salt of the earth. A lot of them have worked entire careers, a lot of them for the county and the city, and they take these positions as their retirement capacity to keep them busy, to interact with citizens, and 95% of the citizen interactions that they have are positive, and they are one of our shining assets that we have here in the county. The other 5% of interactions can be really rather negative and dangerous. And another thing that I shared with during my interview and before I took the job was it is my intention to hand cards with my number to every attendant so that they don't engage in negative interaction with citizens. If there's a citizen that has an issue, that they can call me directly, immediately on their phone, and we can try to address the issue. There is also some discussion and some thought about what a more clear and concise training method and SOP would be to help them to understand what interactions, how they can stay out of conflict. It's tough when you got somebody that's yelling and swearing at you to not engage. And I'm working on trying to change that reaction with them to try to help keep them safe. And then speaking of safe, we're also in the process of purchasing them high-vis county-labeled gear and jackets and steel-toed or composite-toed shoes and boots, so that they too are protected as they're out there with the vehicles that are driving around them. So yeah, they work Saturdays, Sundays, all of the time. They never get a weekend off on because they're part-time, they alternate every other weekend, but they make huge sacrifices to serve the citizens of Rutherford County, and we need to really hold them in the highest esteem for doing that, and I plan to protect them.
I've got one suggestion for you. Back earlier, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I brought it to the mayor's attention, and he may have brought it to yours, I'm gonna bring it to it tonight. Since time has changed, it's getting darker quicker, and our attendants are working in the dark for about 30 minutes. Now, years ago, we had winter time at the convenience center, and we closed early. I'd like to either see us repair some of the lights and get them out of the dark, or just close early till we can get these new centers built. But for their safety, like you said, you know, there's danger there anyway, and in the dark, the danger would be twice as bad. So I'd appreciate if you'd look into that.
Yes, sir, I will.
Great point. Any other questions, comments, Mayor? Did you have something? All right.
I do, and I'll try to cover this very quickly, Mr. Chairman. So after Mr. Nolan left, we had posted the position. I sent Mr. Sandlin out to kind of look over the landfill and the convenience centers and kind of step into that position. Well, during that process, we identified, and it's always been there, at our current location where the scales are located at the landfill, we have a nice heated garage. And so where our trucks have been is down on West College Street, and our mechanics that work on these trucks have been working outside. So our intent is, in talking to Mr. Sandlin and now Director Wagner, we're going to move the operation out to the landfill. There's an empty office out there that he's going to move into. I think we've had maintenance out there this past week. I think we're going to move his office upstairs, and we'll have some other offices. There's plenty of room. We can start pulling the trucks in, working on them out of the elements. We have talked. He's met with Middle Tennessee Electric with the new proposed convenience center up at the landfill. Met with them this past week, making plans to run a new 3-phase transformer, I guess, up to run that facility, as well as working with IT. Bishop's been working with IT, trying to make sure that we get good Wi-Fi out there to where he can communicate. So we'll be vacating at some point in time. I don't think it's going to take a lot. Yolanda just wants to make sure she has her own restroom, and we'll do one we can back up to the current restroom in that building and build an additional restroom for men. So I think it's going to work out real well. That way we'll have eyes and ears at the landfill as on a daily basis to make sure everything's being taken care of out there. That'll give EMA a little bit more room to expand. They were being cramped over on West College Street in the old Armory building as it was, because they've basically been working out of a garden shed, our guys, so they'll be able to come into a building and have a cup of coffee before they hit the road, and they're right there at the landfill. So that's our intent right now. We're moving in that direction, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Wagner's excited about that. And
Great.
Any other comments on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that was a big thing to miss in discussion there. There must have been a lot going on the last week and a half, so so thank you for bringing that up.
Been drinking from the fire hose.
Yeah.
All right.
Bishop, I just want to say a few things on representing this committee and really on behalf of this committee. These gentlemen have been part of this Public Works and Planning Committee for at least 4 years, the commission term, some longer. We have been very busy these last few years, particularly on the what to do with our solid waste and the issues we face with Republic closing, the issues with their expansion, the issues we want to do with recycling. You know, we have a separate subcommittee to this where we have met what seems like almost 3 times a month for the last couple of years, it seems like. But we have a vested interest, all right? That being said, it is fantastic to have a clean slate a fresh canvas, a fresh director with fresh ideas. But let me just give you these words of wisdom from your Uncle Mike here, okay? We are open to any ideas that you come up with, right? Nothing is too crazy. We will listen to anything you have. But the key is communicate. If you have a want or a need or a crisis or a problem, he's number one, we're number two, okay? If you want to run something by us first before you call number one, that's okay too, all right? Because we're here to support you. We want you to do well because we want the county to do well, all right? No need to drudge up things in the past that we were upset about or angry about or lack of information. No need to drudge all that up. Clean slate, okay? But communication is key. If you ever have any issues with TDEC, pick up the phone right away and say, we've got a problem with TDEC. This is what we need to fix. All hands on deck, okay? Don't keep those issues to yourself. If you have any thoughts on how to better educate our community on anything, recycling, social media, how to get the message out, my personal opinion is we do a very poor job. If you have any thoughts, if you've seen how other cities, counties in your travels get the word out on solid waste, on recycling, share that with us, okay? You know, lastly, I guess to sum it up, solid waste is a team sport, man. We are not expecting you to carry that burden on your shoulders. Now, you're the head dude, right? So you got the biggest responsibility, but we're here to help you, all right? But the main thing is communicate, and just expand your mind, man. If you've got an idea, share it with us. Like I said, nothing is too crazy, okay? Because we need fresh ideas. We need fresh ideas. Anybody else want to add to that?
Not to that, Mr. Chairman, but one more thing that happened last night at steering committee in Chairman Harris's committee is that made the recommendation for him to replace Mac on the Solid Waste Authority board.
That's right.
Regional board. So that will be going to you all next week at the full commission for to act on that motion coming out of steering for appointment to the one of our 3 representatives on the Solid Waste Regional Authority.
All right. Anything else, Bishop?
I just wanted to say thank you for the advice and for having my back as we go forward with this. And yeah, we're going to get crazy with some ideas, I think. And I look forward to the future of solid waste for Rutherford County. Thank you all.
Love it. Thank you. Jay, do you have any update on our convenience centers out to bid, being advertised, or anything you want to say? Yeah, come on, get your TV time, man. You've been here for an hour and a half. Come on, get your face on TV. Don't give me that look.
Chairman, the only update is we are looking to get contract books and finalized plans to purchasing on the, I believe it's the 20th.
December.
To advertise
Okay.
those projects. Bishop and I talked today. He met with Electric to discuss how we're getting electric from Jefferson Pike back to the site. And we're going to incorporate their suggestions into our plans so that the contractor has everything they need to bid on it, as opposed to getting the plans and each contractor calling the electric.
Okay.
So we talked about that just today.
All right, good. So end of December, they will advertise. They will be out for what's a typical time frame? 30 days? Okay. So that means end of January, you will start to receive bids?
We'll receive bids end of January, and then make recommendation, accept bids February, Usually once bids have been accepted, there's about a 30 to
Yeah.
60-day period for the contractor to get bonds in.
Right.
And then we can have a pre.
So and you'll be in the dead of winter then anyway, so it'll be springtime realistically, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jay.
On the Jefferson Pike site, are you having bids give to both locations that were looked at, or just one? I know one's further in than the other one for the utilities.
Just the site that's further in.
Further in.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, Jay. Any other old business? Meeting adjourned. Merry Christmas.